Metropolitan Council of Nashville, Davidson County, August 10th. We're going to be here hopefully between 4 and 6. For the first topic is the Solid Waste Master Plan, Achieving Zero Waste. We have with us for that presentation Sharon Smith, who's Special Projects Manager with Metro Water Services, and John Sherman, Chairman of the Davidson County Solid Waste Regional Board. And so I turn it over to you. Oh, wait a minute. Clerk, how about now?
Hello?
There we go.
Okay, good. So before we start, I'd like to introduce another member of the Solid Waste Region Board who's here, Mr. Robert Deal. If you could just wave your hand. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Deal and John Sherman have been on the Solid Waste Board probably longer than I have been involved in solid waste here at Metro Public Works. Pardon me? Before you were born. Not quite before I was born, but maybe close. And actually another member of our Solid Waste Board just walked in, Beth Reardon, who represents the city of Belmead. Thank you all so much for being here. We also have some of our Waste Services staff here, Clay Hand, who many of you have seen if you've been on the Solid Waste Board meetings. He's our solid waste engineer. Jen Harmon, who manages all of our waste reduction programs, and Allie Omens, who's the newest person to our team and is running our construction and demolition recycling program. And I appreciate everybody being here and giving us an opportunity to talk about zero waste, which is one of my favorite topics. Before we begin, I just wanted to let everybody know we're going to be showing you some slides that kind of run through what the zero waste plan is about on a high level. The Chair Sherman will be addressing some of the slides. I'll be addressing others. And at the end of that, feel free to ask any questions. If you want to ask questions during the presentation, that's fine too. Sometimes if you wait too long, you forget the important question you were about to ask. So we're going to get started, and thanks a lot to everyone. Also want to recognize the Director of Metro Water Services, Mr. Scott Potter. Thank you for being here, sir. And we shall begin.
Is this my turn? I believe so. Did you hear me okay? No. They've had to use that one mic.
Okay.
So thank you very much, everybody, for coming to this presentation. I'm John Sherman. I'm chair of the Regional Solid Waste Board. I'm going to talk a little bit about just the process, so everybody has a little, just to give us some context of where the board sits, both with state law and the progression over the last 20 or so years. As you can see from this slide, this is just a really quick one. These regional solid waste boards are mandated by state law that was passed in the early 1990s. Our first plan came out in 1994. Since then, we've had two major revisions to it. There are revisions that happen every year, but we've had two major ones, one in 2008 and again in 2019. What are these? Why do we need these plans? Because the state law requires us to have a plan that diverts 25% of the waste from our landfills. So basically every year we have to see, do we meet that diversion rate? And there's more complication to that Sharon can talk to in a moment. I'll let you explain that one, Sharon. It's pretty straightforward, but it's there. So we have, while we do these annual updates, we've had these three big major plans. Next slide, please. And one thing that's really important is what's the role of the board in those plans, of the volunteer board. You met a couple of the board members here as well as myself. And our job is actually to make sure that we're the ones that are ultimately responsible for making sure that, for ultimately approving them. So we oversee them, we make sure there are public conversations about it, and ultimately we vote on them to thumbs up or thumbs down. Of course, we're all volunteers, and the expertise lies with staff run by Sharon here, who is the one that, in terms of content, you'll be hearing from in a bit. But she's our expert that we rely on quite heavily. And of course, we rely on public input, and we ask for a lot of that in a lot of our sessions. And for any of you that you've been to board meetings through the years, you know that we have some pretty vocal publics that like to come and have their say, which is always welcome. So let me just talk about the zero waste plan again, just about the process before we get to the content. This was a plan that took a while to develop. as we saw through the years, and if you look at the data, which I'm sure you haven't stared at too much, but we really hadn't been putting much of a dent in our recycling. It was pretty flat. At the same time, actual amount of money. So when we were saying, well, that's unacceptable. We need to move beyond that. And so we asked, actually went to the council and the mayor. At that time, it was Mayor Berry, asking we need to have a complete revision of basically a new look at where we're heading with the work with our waste management in the city. We were lucky enough, and based on through Sharon's help too, is to secure money that was contract money to develop this new plan. So here we are. We had before the RFP to let the contract out, the board had several conversations about what do we want in it. Those are all open to the public. We had 2 surveys that actually went out before the RFP was let to make sure that we had plenty of information from the public. At that time then, once that started rolling, we had 6 different board meetings that talked about the plan, all public, all open, of course, as well as we put together a broader set of task force with representatives from across the different sectors in the city. Really important, really helpful to have that broader outreach. At the same time, we made sure that there were public hearings, public meetings around the city in areas, instead of having everybody come here or to our place, we made sure that there were these meetings in communities, 6 of them. And of course, we also had made sure that we talked with the Public Works Committee, you at the time that was happening. So I wanted to just emphasize with you that this was a process that was thoughtful, deliberate, and had lots of public input into it. So happy to answer questions at any time. Sharon, our content expert, is going to take it over.
Thank you.
Let me run it.
So the big question was, how did we get here? And when we first sat down at Public Works, and this was back, for those of you who have been here a while, when Randy Levitt was the Public Works Director, and we were talking about, everything about Middle Point, that's where our waste went, what are we going to do? And we all collectively decided to approach the administration and see if we could get some money to put together an updated solid waste plan. The interesting thing is we were looking at aggressive diversion, but it was actually out of the mayor's Livable Nashville committee that the concept for zero waste came. And once we all started talking, the Megan Berry's Livable Nashville committee had several subcommittees. There was a waste reduction subcommittee that John was on, that I was one of the staff members to, and various other people, including, actually we had a representative from Waste Management on the committee. And from that committee, we decided that we needed to go a step further. As John mentioned, state law requires counties to have regions. Davidson County is a single county region, but it also required the development of plans, and that the plan include how we're going to divert waste by 25%. And that diversion is from Class 1 landfills only. So that's from your Middle Point type landfill only. Doesn't include construction and demolition debris. But when we started putting together the concept and the scope for the plan, with input from the Livable Nashville Committee, we said we want to try to achieve zero waste, and we want it to be across the board. Not just the garbage that's picked up by Public Works, but also the massive amount of construction debris that we're seeing all the time here in Nashville. And part of the reason we did it is because of this slide. Right now, this is about this doesn't reflect 1 year, but it reflects sort of an average over time of what we're actually doing. And for the most part, and this is not what Public Works picks up, this is entire Davidson County. Most of what we're doing is going to landfills. We rely heavily on landfilling waste completely across the board, whether it is the garbage from your home, from your business, or construction debris. And when you look at the national averages, we are a fair amount behind where other cities and counties are. So in looking at how we wanted this plan to be framed, we knew that we had some challenges. Metro government, Public Works, and now Metro Water Services only controls about 20% of the total waste stream. So that means the stuff that we pick up, trash, recycling, and brush, is a small sliver of the overall waste. And so part of the plan is, how do we impact the bigger picture? How do we impact that 80% that we don't have any direct control over? The other challenge is recycling is voluntary. Nashville has a great voluntary recycling program, but cities that have aggressive diversion, the cities that you hear about, in California and out west in New York, they have required recycling and not mandatory. We also had limited alternatives. When we first started the zero waste planning process, we only had one facility. We still only have one facility to process food waste in the Middle Tennessee region, and that facility wasn't fully permitted. They were running off of a sort of a trial basis with TDEC, and it wasn't until, I think it was about 4 years ago now, they got their full permit. So we had limited food waste options and limited construction and demolition recycling options. And as you all can imagine, to be really successful, people need to have multiple options of where to take their material. We need to have the capacity. And part of the planning process behind the zero waste plan was the slow process of building capacity and how we get there. One of our biggest challenges that we don't address on this slide is that landfilling is cheap. Whether it's municipal solid waste landfilling or construction and demolition landfilling, the biggest challenge we have is that it's so cheap. In the South, this is not special to Tennessee or Nashville, it's all across the South. And when you start asking people to do things that might be a little more expensive or require a slightly different investment is when you really start getting pushback. So those are kind of the major factors. Oh, pardon me. And at the same time, when you look at our waste stream, you can see that a huge chunk of it is organics, a huge chunk is paper, plastics, and then this is construction and demolition waste, which is smaller. And this is one of the reasons why we are so focused on trying to increase traditional recycling, increase the diversion of food waste and organics, and tackle how we recycle the construction demolition debris that we're seeing, which is actually highly recyclable. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain?
Yes, I'm sorry, organics is food and yard waste. So on setting goals and priorities, adopting a zero waste philosophy means a completely different way that we look at how we manage waste. We're changing our mindset from buying and throwing out or recycling to thinking about how waste is managed, not cradle to grave, but cradle to cradle, so that we're looking at a continuous stream, the circular economy that you often hear people talking about, where we're not focused on just buying something single use or whatever and putting it in a trash cart or putting it in a recycling cart. It involves everybody thinking about how they manage waste at home. And we're looking to maximize waste diversion. Traditionally speaking, zero waste usually means somewhere around 90%. When you get down to some of the very small bits and pieces, it can become extremely expensive and cost prohibitive to do that last 10%. There are some cities that really try to tackle that. But for us here in Nashville, we're trying to get started and really get moving to that first big piece, which is sort of the 75% diversion. So priorities for this goal were, of course, public education, very important. Part of my job is overseeing our waste reduction education, and something that's been part of my entire career here at Metro. But building county-wide recycling programs for recycling and organics. So we're not just talking about USD single-family homes. We're talking about, and this is part of the whole plan, so this isn't tomorrow, but looking at the general service district. Right now, our only sort of requirement in the general service district is that every hauler, and this is in Metro Code 1020, every hauler that picks up trash has to offer a recycling program to their customers. And that was a change to Metro Code made in 2010 by the council members at the time. And that was very impactful for people in the general service district who want to have curbside recycling, but don't live in the urban service district. So we want the programs to be across the board, USD and GSD, and we want to look at ways that we can increase construction and demolition diversion. Over the past 11 or so years, 10 years, since 2011, we have had approximately 92,000 tons of construction demolition waste reported to the Solid Waste Board for diversion, whereas over several million tons of construction and demolition waste has actually been landfilled. So we're way upside down on C&D waste. One of the issues that we're facing, that everybody in Middle Tennessee is facing, is that the landfill that most of us are close to, and I'll be honest, I'm friends with the solid waste folks in Rutherford County and Murfreesboro. They're in the same situation, if not worse, than Nashville is. Middle Point is a very large landfill. It's used by over 30 counties. It takes about 4,000 tons a day. And at some point, it's either going to close, or Republic is still trying to expand the landfill. And I think that whole drama will carry on for some time as really this is Rutherford County and Republic try to figure out how or if they can move forward. That doesn't mean, sometimes people say, the landfill's going to fill up, we don't have any place to go. There are other places to go. There are places in Kentucky, there are places in Tennessee, they're just further. But at the end of the day, the real question is this what we want to do? Do we want to keep landfilling? Or is it time for us to have a complete change in our mindset and start thinking, what are better options? This plan, and I'm going to quote our chair, because this really resonated with me, is an investment in the future. It's not something that we can snap our fingers and have done, but it's something that the decisions that we make today are impacting the decisions that are made in the future and the quality of life for people in the future here in Nashville. Some of the critical policies, and some of this you've heard before, we've talked about establishing an authority. I would say that for Metro Water Services, and I'm speaking for myself here, and the Waste Services Division, one thing that we really want to do is work towards the waste being considered what it always should have been, which is a utility. Waste and recycling is 100% based on individual user's choice, just like water usage and electricity usage. And getting people to understand that when you leave the light on, your electric bill is going to go up. If you let the water run endlessly, your water bill is going to go up. And that individually, we have a responsibility to also look at the waste we're generating and find ways to reduce it. So having the authority / I will say the enterprise fund is something that is very important in this plan, because it changes everybody's viewpoint. When you have to pay, you think differently than when you don't have to pay. And when you don't see that cost, and when the bills aren't coming in and you're thinking, wow, I really could cut back here, and maybe I could buy a new car. I don't know, something. Of course, a key part of this is mandatory recycling, asking people to divert certain types of material, the traditional recyclables, paper, cardboard, aluminum, plastic, that are recyclable from their waste. This is commercial and residential. And I'm going to be honest, this is a big issue. It hits a huge amount of our waste. There are three areas that make the biggest impact. This program, where you're requiring people to divert, the save as you throw, which is in the next little bar here, where people start paying and they sort of get it. The construction and demolition recycling, and the organics. Those three areas alone make up the largest portion. If that's all Davidson County ever did, we would be looking at 70+ diversion from landfills. And that diversion from landfills means that the landfills do last longer. They're still out there as an option. But it also means that by diverting this material, we bring in the opportunity of having more investment, more businesses come to Nashville. Part of the struggle that we have right now is we've got one recycling facility that can do single stream separation. There's only one, actually in Middle Tennessee. A lot of people come to Nashville for that recycling. We only have one construction and demolition recycler. And part of that is there's just not enough demand for more folks to come in. As we divert more and there's more demand, we have people wanting to come to Nashville. We've got construction and demolition recyclers wanting to come to Nashville, but there's not enough there yet for them to make that leap. The fourth one references a C&D deposit system. Ironically, we were talking with Metro Legal about that today, and there are a lot of options. Back a couple years ago, Councilmember Sledge and Mike, I believe it was you, we met on construction, demolition, recycling, and had a lot of conversations about it, and out of that came the program that we just started July 1st, which is requiring developers, this is construction demolition projects more than $50,000 that are commercial and multifamily now have to file a waste management plan with our department. And that has been a really interesting opportunity because we're starting to be able to educate people on how they can divert. People who hadn't been thinking about it before are now getting education on what options are out there. But also we're capturing some data that we didn't know was going on before. And I think this is going to help us paint a better picture of what's actually going on. And hopefully, now we're barely a month into this program, so we don't really have data yet. But we're hoping that as we get more data, we're going to be able to show the capacity for more businesses coming into Nashville. And then last but not least, and probably one of the most challenging things to do, would be instituting a franchise system. And what a franchise system is, and that's something that the city of Los Angeles did recently, and it was very controversial, but the thing that it does is it basically carves up the county into sections. And instead of having, if you live in the general service district, or if you're in a business, instead of having 4 or 5 trucks going down the street all week long, you carve it into areas where you have one hauler that's picking up in one area, another hauler in another area. Reduces emissions, it's more efficient, but as you can imagine, it is controversial. Franchise systems are legal, but it's something that's way down the line that we're going to have to think about. But when we look at how do we get to zero waste, these are the programs that we see that would really help, the programs that other cities have done. And in the work that was done by our contractors and looking at zero waste, they looked at a number of cities, including Austin. And Austin is a great city for Nashville to look at. It is very similar to Nashville. We compare well. And we actually had on our, in our group of consultants, the gentleman who had done the zero waste plan for the city of Boston. And I periodically reach out to him and see, for any suggestions. He's retired now. He's with a consulting firm. But it's really important for us to look at what other cities are doing successfully. And we can't always implement those programs in Nashville, but it gives us an idea of what works. And then we have to step back, work internally, meet with you all as council members, and talk about legislative options and see what will work in Nashville. Because this is definitely, as you all know, not a cookie cutter situation. So as I kind of mentioned before, the areas where we make the biggest impact are in Save As You Throw, where you're looking at diverting all the cardboard, paper, aluminum, metal cans, plastic bottles and containers, your construction and demolition waste, and your organics, and I will say that in this slide where it talks about Save As You Throw, it's including organics collection. A key element of the plan is adding food waste collection at the curb for residents, which makes it so much easier. Many of you know now we have 4 drop-off locations. For those of you who were at the council last week, a grant application that went through we're trying to get some money to expand our collection opportunities for residents where they have more places to go to drop off material. But just those programs are what gets us so much higher. Most of what we're throwing out every day is paper, cardboard, metal cans, aluminum cans, plastic bottles. That's most of what we throw out every day. So within the plan, understanding that times change and there needs to be flexibility, we did look at aggressive and sort of more conservative timelines. Over the last few years, we have not been able to get any extra funding. This is the first year that we've had a program increase, which I'm very excited about, and I appreciate what the administration has done and council to add in every other week recycling. Because having once a month recycling has been and continues to be a challenge. It's hard to remember, especially if the month starts on a Tuesday and then the people on Monday are confused and the weeks stagger. Every other week recycling is going to make it easier. Statistically speaking, we should see an increase in participation. Right now, we've got about 140,000 trash customers, and about 106,000 of those actually have a recycling cart. That's a gap there of, over 30,000 or about 30,000 homes that could have recycling, but they're choosing not to. And some of them are just going to drop off sites, which is good. And some of them are saying it's just not worth it because it's once a month. I've got 3 carts, it fills up. I have too much stuff. Pardon me. Also, from administration to administration, there may be some changes in priorities. So we have to be flexible. We need to be able to create a plan that could be accelerated or decelerated as needed. And so looking over the next few years, we, with our consultants, patterned out sort of a more extended timeline and a more aggressive timeline. But the great thing about this plan is not only is it flexible, it can be updated. We can update this plan every year. When we file our annual progress report, which is a state mandated report, we can update the plan. If council has an initiative that they would like to see that isn't included in this plan, we can add it in. If there's something in there that we realize now, yeah, that probably is not something that's going to work in Tennessee, we want to go another route, we can take that out. The great thing about these required state planning documents is that they have this annual opportunity for every county and solid waste region to update it and make it fit how the current wind is blowing. And I can make these slides available afterwards if anybody wants to see them. So what are the benefits? There are a lot of benefits. First of all, I want to reiterate what John had said to me the other day. This really is an investment in the future. If we as a society just continue to bury our trash, at some point, we are going to run out of resources. We have to find ways to make more sustainable products that can be recycled over and over again, products that are reusable, products that you don't need to have once and then throw away. So looking at the future and what we want to do, if we can reduce our reliance on landfills, if we can increase our opportunity to have recycling options and solutions, and all of that additionally, when you look at what the impact is on the environment, you can see that it is actually an investment in the future because as a society, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm not like a big environmentalist, and the reason I got into waste to begin with is that I really see it as a way that we can make change. I did not grow up in the United States, and I grew up overseas in developing countries where people scavenged for waste. They'd go through your trash looking for it and pulling it out to recycle it. And when I came to the United States as a young person, I was shocked at just what we were doing and how we were handling our waste and just sort of discarding and ignoring. And as an adult, I was able to go back overseas and live in several different countries in Korea and in Southeast Asia, where I saw different ways, waste to energy, different ways that waste is handled. We, in the United States, and this is across the board, rely heavily on landfill disposal. It's easy, it's cheap. People don't even, I don't always think, completely appreciate that when you throw something in the trash can, it's going to a landfill. We want it gone. It's like flushing the toilet. You just want it gone. You don't want to think about where it goes. And we need to try and part of this is the challenging job that I have, is to educate people on how we can make different choices, how we can move Nashville forward, and how we can also reduce emissions that are from the vehicles, that are from the materials. And I could go on, and I apologize, but I will stop. And thank you very much. I'm welcoming questions. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Well, thanks for you guys for putting this on. I suspect that due to COVID resurging, that's sort of keeping attendance down a bit. But I appreciate all the effort. I almost stayed home and watched this on TV, but I wanted to ask a few questions. There's two areas that I want to get some more details on. And in both instances, I'm 100% on board philosophically. But I think there's some things that as this plan unfolds for years to come, and there's a risk of surprised community members, it'll be nice to have video way back in 2021 where we were really clear about exactly what was going to happen. And particularly with the save as you throw, I think on the chart that had the phases, I think that indicated years 4 to 8 for that, which by my math probably would be after a second Cooper administration. But could you give more details about it exactly what we mean by save as you throw and the change to what it means as far as people paying to do it? And I know the details are tucked away in the presentation, but I want some video that is clear and direct with the citizens of Davidson County that the plan is to go to moving toward having to pay for some component of garbage/recycling in a way that is clear and precise about the best known plan and timeline now, so everybody can say, yeah, this has been talked about since way back in 2021. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say that having a fee-based system started in the original plan and has been in every plan since, but it is, and I appreciate what you're saying because it is a challenge. What save as you throw, and there's also pay as you throw, it's all the same thing. It is taking waste and treating it as a utility. It means you pay for your trash. You're paying for what you throw out. And there are a lot of different models out there of how you can do it. It can be based on the number of trash carts. It can be based on the weight of your trash. It can be based on the size of your trash cart. There's all different kinds of ways you can do it. But the point is that the less you're throwing out, the more you're saving. The less you're throwing out, the less you're paying. And most cities in the U.S., and when Shanna Whitelaw, who was the interim public works director, was presenting to the committees about the move to Metro Water Services, Jen Harmon and I did some research, and we saw that most of the cities that we track well with are already implementing some version. Some of them have a hybrid where they do get some general fund. Some of them get no general fund. Memphis is a really good example. They've kind of gone back and forth right now, or the last time I talked to them, they were completely on a fee-based system. Austin on a fee-based system, and then some of them, like I said, are hybrid. But it is the same concept as how you would have your electric and your water. It is paying for disposal.
And then thank you. Let me ask this follow-up. As of now, are there any formal or informal plans to begin to implement that on any particular time frame?
Not that I'm aware of, because we just moved to water, and part of the purpose of doing that was to look at these options. Many years ago, and actually I worked at Public Works when stormwater moved over to Metro Water Services, and I don't know exactly how long it took, but it took some time for the studying to be done, for the public meetings to happen, and I did look at a document of the number of public meetings that Metro Water Services had before the stormwater fee started, and it was pretty significant. So when this happens, there's going to have to be some type of rate study, some type of study looking at what are the actual full costs, and then having many conversations, not just with you all as council people and elected officials, but residents, and making sure people understand the benefits, what it means, and how it's going to impact them going forward.
And I guess some people will like it, some people won't like this, but as of right now, none of the stuff that you've talked about is beyond just the idea stage,
Yeah,
right?
no, in my opinion, we kind of have to get settled in and move our every other week recycling forward before we get too carried away.
All right, Chair, and then just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
The other topic I'm interested in more details about is just how to go from, this is on the C&D, the construction and demolition debris, where we are now, generally doing an abysmal job, to the goal, which is zero waste at some point. Is it realistic that we can expect to cover that ground without ever having an expansion or new C&D facility in this county?
That's a really good question, because part of the reason you don't see a lot of construction, demolition, recycling is because construction, demolition, landfilling is so cheap. And if you're just trying to, build as cheaply as possible, it's very unlikely you're going to recycle. A lot of the recycling that happens in that sector right now are lead construction and some of the large developers that have internal corporate requirements for sustainability. And that is the sort of complicated question, is because we have a landfill in Davidson County and it's very cheap, that does make it more challenging on recycling. I don't know if any of you know John Vanderhurst, who used to...
And just that C&D landfill in Davidson County has got just a couple of years worth of time horizon left to it, is that right?
Well, they probably, it's kind of difficult to know. I think they have maybe 4 years or 5. They do have, some time left to, and they do have a, sort of a small recycling operation there at that facility. But once again, it's only getting sort of those lead projects. Last year, at that landfill, it accepted about 480,000 tons of construction demolition debris and recycled about 29,000.
This is, I'll just leave with this comment, then I'll be done, Chair. This is a place where philosophically I'm 100% on board. I have questions. I understand the plan basically calls for no expansion of C&D anywhere. I know there's opposition to, that I probably am, well, there's opposition to expanding the existing C&D facility, but I have a hard time wrapping my brain around how we hop from one to the other and make that work. And the plan, just a fuzzy on how the plan could actually work. Thanks, Chair.
And I will say one thing, there is a fair amount of construction and demolition waste that goes directly to waste transfer stations, as well as what goes to the C&D landfill. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something.
Just a couple quick observations. One is that there are other C&D landfills in the region. So I don't think we ought to feel that this is our only option. And it was a really interesting piece that one of the board members brought up when this conversation was happening, because our board voted on the Southern Services expansion, and we voted no based on our plan. And that was that C&D as also can just go to a regular landfill. There's nothing that prevents that. The problem is, it's not it doesn't cause as many problems in the waterways, so it's just cheaper to not. That's why they have different kind of landfills. But the other thing is like expenses depending on in the eyes of the beholder, and so it might be cheaper to dispose it, but there's all the ramifications long term, which we don't always have to think about in terms of, well, so what's happening with it or what's happening to the residents around it. I would guess if you ask them if it's cheap, they may have a different answer. So I think we have to look at cheapness in the eyes of cheap to who. So
I have Benedict, Gamble, and Roden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for being here today and talking with us. I just want to make sure, for the 80% that we don't manage, are we talking about that? Let me back up. I, too, think this is fantastic. We need to work towards this end. My district wants to work towards this end. So I want to work towards this end. So I want to say that. I just want to talk about, how do we get there, which is, I think, what we're here to talk about today. For the 80% that we don't manage, are we talking about that today, or are we just talking about the 20% that we do?
We're talking about the 100%.
Okay, all right. From, you mentioned state law, Sharon, that the state law is 25% diversion. Did I catch that wrong?
That's correct.
Okay, and so are there other localities in the city, other municipalities that are hitting that number?
No, that is for the county. And so we easily reach that 25, and I didn't do a great job explaining that because but it's 25% waste diversion from the base year, which was 1995. And that's a number that we easily reach every year. It's not a challenge because we're going back and looking, we have to look per capita, how much waste was landfilled in the base year of 1995, and then how much did we have this year. And there are some counties that can't reach it, but I would say that most counties are probably reaching that number. Part of the reason it's easy for us is back in 95, there was a lot of sewage sludge landfilled, and we're not doing that anymore. Water Services has a more sustainable program. So it's the bar, I guess I should say the bar is very low.
And what I was getting at there was, and so thank you for that. What I was getting at there is, are there other places that are doing this better than us, and what could we learn from that? But it sounds like it's not 25% of what we do. It's 25% of incremental growth or per capita, as you said. Okay. From a regulatory perspective, what's in the way of us doing this? Is there anything legally, is there anything from a regulatory perspective that would stop us from being able to implement this plan and be successful with it?
I don't know that I could say that there's anything maybe regulatory. TCA certainly gives counties and solid waste regions the authority to develop or to create a solid waste authority, and there are examples of solid waste authorities in the state. There are no state laws that prohibit any of the things recommended. I do think that the franchise system would be somewhat challenging, less from a state standpoint. But as far as local or state laws, there's nothing that prevents unless we were preempted.
So, for instance, mandatory recycling, we could put that in place without any preemption under the books currently.
Yes, and in fact, a lot of people don't know, but we actually have a current 3 material bans from trash containers. You can't put yard waste in your container, or you're not supposed to, cardboard, and electronics. But the problem is we don't have, and this kind of goes back to all the challenges, we don't have anybody that can go out and look and police that. So it's there, but we don't have the ability to tell people you're throwing out cardboard and you're not supposed to. So technically, we already have some mandates in place. We just haven't been able to staff up to do any enforcement.
You led me to a follow-up, Chair. This is my last one. She just led me to one. How would we be able to do that?
So what a lot of cities do is they do have inspectors that go out and they look in residential carts, they look in commercial dumpsters. They also will potentially have people at the transfer stations. So technically, putting cardboard in your dumpster is a violation of the code. But if you don't have staff that can go out and monitor, intercept, educate, then you really don't have a ban at all. But we do have 3 bans currently on the records.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here in your presentation. I learned quite a bit today. I have 2 questions. First, the franchise waste management plan. Would that be managed by the city or a third-party vendor, and how would that impact the property tax with the USD and GSD having a district that has both, half and half? How would that impact? And second, have there been any, I know I've been a former beautification commissioner, I know there's a lot of work in education for recycling. Has there been any new efforts towards the low-hanging fruit? I think you mentioned 30,000 residents that could be recycling that aren't. Are there any efforts towards building or ramping up the efforts for recycling those that aren't recycling now?
Okay, and I apologize if I forget, but on the franchise system, it's kind of a little early to make a determination because on one hand, That's a concept that, that we looked into quite a bit, but until you actually go down the pathway to implement, that's when you can make changes. Generally speaking, those are managed by the city. They're not usually managed by a contractor, because the point is that the city is regulating how this is carved up. And so therefore it wouldn't necessarily have a USD, GSD impact, because the goal is that your hauler in the general service district, just like Metro, so Red River picks up my trash and Metro picks up my recycling, and they're required to provide me those two services. Instead of making it optional, your hauler would be required to provide you those services. So it, in a sense, part of what our goal is to try and not make such a difference in the type of services that people get, but that everybody gets the same type of service. It's just a matter if Metro is the one providing it or if it's a private hauler. And education. Yes, so we have done quite a bit of outreach to residents on recycling. Over the last year, we actually had in our curbside and recycling drop-off program, we had about a 46% contamination, which is massive. And we spent a lot of time with doing sort of targeted social media, paid social media, trying to reach out. We did some mailers out to people, trying to communicate with them. We're actually, if it hadn't been for COVID, we were working with a group with the TDEC and TSU to do some on-street sort of talking to people, looking in their recycling carts, explaining to them and encouraging people, telling them how they could sign up. That through those efforts, even during COVID, the contamination that we're getting, and I know this doesn't directly answer your question, but I'm just so happy about it, I've got to say it, reduced to 28%, which is really significant and is a cost savings. But in all of the going out and talking to people, putting better signs on the drop-off containers that you've probably seen, I do think that we're going to see more people participating, but when we are able to roll out the every other week program and we do a more massive outreach. So you think about it, we sent a letter to all Metro customers when we did the 5-day reroute that talked about how you could recycle, how you could get a cart. And then in January or December of last year, we sent out a postcard that also did the same thing. This is what you put in your cart, here's the calendar. And we have seen more people, but still there's that, and you're right, it's low-hanging fruit. And in talking with some folks in the industry, there is a strong belief that inconvenient service is a reason that some people don't sign up. When we start rolling out every other week recycling, we're working to get some grant funding to help boost the money we have for education and try and get more information out to people. It's easy. It's every other week. Here's what goes in it. You get you don't have to pay for your recycling cart. You know what happens when you lose your trash cart. It's totally different. You don't have to pay for it. We'll bring it to you. We want you to recycle. It's a good thing.
Just one more follow-up, Chair, and thank you for mentioning that, because you're absolutely right. That is, when that rolls out, a great opportunity to re-educate, maybe some kind of campaign, let people know what's happening. When does that program roll out?
Well, that is something I don't know the answer to. Actually, I've set up an internal meeting with, and many of you know John Honeysucker is heading up the Metro collection, and the Public Information Officer at Metro Water Services, Sonia Ullman, and we're hoping to meet later this week to start talking about when to roll that out. They're going to have to hire staff. It's not like we can flip a switch. We do have the trucks, but we're going to have to hire staff. We're going to have to ramp up. They're going to have to get trained. They're going to have to learn the routes. So there is a little bit of legwork before we can roll it out. Thank you.
Councilmember Roten.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharon, thanks for being out here today. I appreciate it. Mr. Sherman, you as well. Sharon, I've got a really specific question, then I'll go up to 10,000 feet. The Hermitage C&D landfill, what is the status of that?
It is basically kind of closed, but they're taking in a little bit here and there. So they took in a few thousand tons last year, and it was and it was reported to us from TDEC. And I actually spoke to some folks at TDEC, and they're just kind of barely keeping it kind of open, but it's pretty much
And as far as the closing, do you know the timeline on the closing of that? And then obviously the capping and all that kind of stuff. Have any discussions been had about that yet?
Well, those discussions would be with TDEC, and at this point, I'm not aware that they have made any discussions. They're just sort of very slowly, taking a little bit at a time, and not moving forward.
And where's the other C&D landfill?
It's in Bordeaux.
So we actually have 2 C&D landfills that are still open, not just one.
That's correct. Although the one on Central Pike just does. So Southern Services is taking almost 500,000 tons. They took a couple thousand. So they're not really able to take much capacity at this time.
I got you. Okay. The other question, really high level, and I guess I always think about this as being the councilman for a district that had a landfill for many years and rock quarries.
Yeah.
When you place a landfill or a rock quarry or a recycling plant, or you place anything in a community, you are going to decrease the property value around that location tremendously. You're going to, the houses around it just bottom out. The businesses, no one wants to go there because you have so many trucks coming into that. Has there ever been a study done on how much you lose by placing a recycling plant or a landfill or a rock quarry in an area where like for rock quarries for 50 years, 75 years, everything around it is no longer financially viable. The land is not financially viable. So what I'm saying is you have much cheaper land 50 miles away, and the land here that is just growing exponentially, we're saying, okay, we're just going to say, no, we don't want that property to increase anymore. Has there been any studies done to that?
I don't know that, I know Public Works hasn't done a study on that. And I think the trend certainly has been to put, recycling facilities in industrial areas that have similar type of, whatever it is, where, a lot of traffic coming in.
I guess what I'm following up on,
Yeah.
Hermitage, 70 years ago out there when they put it the landfill and they put the rock quarry, it was just country and no one thought anything about it. Well, now it's urban.
Yeah.
And you've got a rock quarry in the middle of it, and so we have a bunch of land there that is unusable, and everything around it is still, of course, 3 miles away, you've got houses that are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 that we could have there and be receiving tax revenue from. So that's kind of what I'm saying is we really need a study of if you're going to go put a trash facility in some part of the county, in 20 or 30 years, we may be losing a whole lot of revenue because we decided to put a facility there. So that's kind of, I would really like to know what kind of studies have been done to show how much you would lose 20, 30, 40 years down the road by placing something in an area that at some point will grow exponentially and we don't get the revenue from it.
Well, and I really appreciate what you're saying, because I think that we need to change. One of the pieces of the solid waste plan, or the zero waste plan, that I didn't talk about when you start getting down into some of the nitty gritty is, as you focus more on diversion and you try and bring in businesses that can handle that type of material. So now, instead of looking at landfilling or even recycling, they're using the material more as a feedstock. And just like a manufacturer, and you're sort of flipping how that waste is handled from being a facility like you described that is maybe dirty or has litter or odors into something that becomes much more like a manufacturing operation that's taking the local products. And it's interesting because one thing, the GNRC, and y'all are probably familiar with the Greater Nashville Regional Council, they spent about a year wrangling all the local solid waste directors and us talking about things that we would like to do. And one thing that a lot of the directors were very interested in is how can we get industry here that supports these efforts instead of just burying it or recycling it, shipping somewhere else. How can we make it benefit our local economy instead of maybe somebody else's? But I do appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think, just to follow up, Freddie O'Connell, I had a long heart-to-heart about this, that the recycling plant that was placed at the corner of Lebanon Road, Lebanon Pike, Hermitage Avenue, and Fessler's Lane, which is right there at the end of Fessler's Lane, I thought it was the most, and Freddie will get mad at me, I'm just going to say, I thought it was a ridiculous thing to do, to put that right there when you have so much growth moving out that way, and you're going to put a large recycling facility right there at the end of Fessler's Lane and Lebanon Pike because you have so many trucks now coming in there. So once the growth gets there, it's just going to stop. No one's going to build around a recycling facility. So that's all the large trucks coming in. I mean, people just don't want to be around that. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about long term is what are you stopping by putting recycling facilities in locations with big trash trucks rolling in and out all the time? So that's just what I want us to keep looking at. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And let me just clarify, the facility there on Fessler's Lane is a waste transfer station. And the recycling facilities don't have the same, they still have traffic, but they don't have the same odor and issues that you do see around a waste transfer station. And that waste transfer station has, and you're right, it's been there for a very long time, right near a lovely cemetery. It's kind of unfortunate.
We're bumping up against our times, but Council Lady Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Sharon, for being here, both of you for being here. I have one question about, you mentioned about haulers are required to offer recycling as part of the code. So haulers now that have paused offering recycling to new customers, are they out of compliance with the law? There's been some out in the GSD that have stopped taking on new customers. They've reduced down for existing to once a month and stopped adding on new. So are they out of compliance, or is there a weird definition of offer because there's grandfathered people like me that still get, the original?
So describe that again.
So haulers that are not taking
New
customers with recycling, like they'll take potentially, regular trash collection, but not recycling.
I got it. Yeah, no, they're supposed to. If you want it, and we can talk offline, and I've had to make some calls over the years to people and just remind them that you are required to offer it. Now, the issue could be that if there's only one or two people out there in that area, they're going to charge you more, and they have that they're going to do that, but they still have to provide that service if somebody wants it, and they know that.
Okay.
But we can talk. I'm willing to call them and just
remind them.
Gently remind them.
That's cool. I will talk with you offline about that. And the other question I had may not be for you, might be for Mr. Jameson over here. But with the educational efforts, there's only so much education everybody can do. You either get what you're doing or you don't get what you're doing. But we're also hamstrung by not having bottle deposits and things like that. So on the metro focus at the state level from an advocacy perspective, where does what you're working on fall into the prioritization of what's being advocated for with the state legislature?
On the
like bottle bills and things like that.
Well, the bottle bill is, and it's a little confusing because it's part litter and part recycling, and I would have to say that I am not going to advocate the state legislature to do one thing or another in my position. I think it's best to let the folks out there that are in advocacy groups do that, and then if there is a change in the law, then we'll step up and address that locally.
Sure, and I just understand what you're saying. I guess I'm thinking about more the state government advocacy effort that Metro pays for, either through external lobbying firms or whomever we're using. I don't even know. That if we're paying for a service, is the conversation about the impact from not passing a bottle bill a part of the conversation? Does that make sense?
It is, and at this point, certainly in Davidson County, it's not. We want to just keep moving forward, doing everything that we can with the money that we've got. If that happens and we end up getting more money, that's fine. But if not, we need to just keep moving things forward.
Thank you. Mike, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Council Lady. The state legislation, as you note, is not permissive for an effective bottle recycling bill. With respect to the lobbyists for Metro, the current lobbyist, Adams and Reese, their contract is expiring, so we have just now begun the RFP process to seek their successor or whoever that may be. That'll be a couple of months in the working. But towards the end of the year, we'll have an outreach with the council members to decide upon what is the legislative agenda we want to seek for the coming term, and welcome your proposal with respect to the bottle legislation, because it's certainly worthwhile. Thank you.
Ms. Smith and Mr. Sherman, we thank you both for being with us. Lots to think about. I think everyone's in agreement that the goal is one we want to reach, but there's some big hurdles in that process. So we'll, I'm sure we'll be talking some more.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone,
so
for your
much.
time.
Thank you very much. Happy to come back.
We will be transitioning now to our discussion of the right-of-way and some of our MOUs and how we manage those. With us, we have Faye DeMassimo, Director of the Nashville Department of Transportation, Charles Vaughn with NES, Tom Cross with Metro Legal, and Hal Balthrop with Metro Water Services. Welcome all. I'm going to let Ms. DeMassimo kind of park everyone up here to make this work. We got more people and we got some seats, but while we're transitioning, I guess not on the schedule here, but I spoke with my daughter today who works at a regional hospital in the area, and she said, make sure you wear your mask tonight. Their hospital's ICU is full again. Serious business. This COVID and the new variation. So I guess to the public listening, I would encourage everyone, wear your mask, social distance, and get your vaccine. If we get 70, 80% people vaccinated, we can get that herd immunity, and we can go back to living our lives again. We're being foolish, many of us. Please, talk to your primary care physician. Get ready. Ms. DeMassimo, you're on. I don't know if that mic is working. Is there a button down there? If you push that little button, will it work? Yeah, you're going to have to pass that one around. Or I'll probably get that one, yes. Council, yes, you're working.
Can you hear me now? Is it working? No.
Speak up. Oop, that's,
Hear me now?
Hey,
yeah,
this one,
sorry.
we can move and let you
Well, no,
start
I'm
us
just,
out.
I'm gonna go
Council.
sit down over here after we get done.
Why isn't this working?
I'm good. I'm short.
Council?
So council members, thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. We've got a cast
Now it's
today
working.
of folks to present lots of good information. So I'm going to be going back over to the table in a moment, but we'll be up here for any questions or anything if you need. There are a couple of handouts that we gave you. One is our overall presentation, but one is a part of what we're going to talk a little bit about today, an example of a recent success that I wanted to share with you. And Jeff Hammond is here from NDOT, and I really wanted him to get credit for the fine work here. So we've had a number of utility coordination is a key activity for NDOT. Managing our rights-of-way is something that we do every day, all the time, and utility coordination is one of the most complex activities that we do there. With that said, we're going to be talking about several components of that today. The first is an MOU that deals with some of our relationship with some of the primary providers, NES in particular, and the development of that and where that is in process right now. And Tom Cross is going to be presenting that. Utility coordination at both the field and policy level, we reported on to you before, and how Balthrop is going to be presenting on that, and also talking about Nash Diggs and how we are engaged in that process. And then there was a third piece that we'd focused on, and it was problem areas where we know we've got extensive ADA compliance issues. And this is an example of what we did to working with NES and others. We identified sort of a top group of projects that had very extensive long-term issues, problematic utility coordination issues that resulted in ADA issues for us, and we worked together and to come up with a creative solution for it. We said we're going to take the top 5 toughest and start working through those one at a time. And Jeff Hammond has been leading that effort. And this is a remarkable example. If you read just the project impact line of, it's over 4,300 feet of ADA compliant sidewalk. And then here's the part we're so proud of, removing 230 accessibility issues. That's an incredible accomplishment. Now, we're chipping away at this a bit at a time. But this is the kind of work that we can and will be doing. With that, before I turn it over to my colleagues from Metro, I wanted to ask Mr. Vaughn, our partner at NES, if he'd make a few remarks from the NES partnership perspective.
All right. Thank you. Hello, I'm Vaughn Charles with Nashville Electric Service. Previously, I was in the role of customer engineering manager, got recently promoted to vice president of operations. I don't have a whole lot to say really, except that it's been somewhat rewarding trying to work with Metro Public Works in identifying some of these locations and just bringing a sense of urgency to getting some of these problems resolved. And so, you know, we want to be a good partner in accomplishing these goals, and I've been the point person trying to lead this effort from the NES side. Thank you.
I'm Tom Cross from the Metro Legal Department. I'd also like to point out that there are a couple of other people here from NES as well. I'm glad to see them, and they may be able to help us answer questions at the end if you have any. But from their legal department, Laura Smith and Antonio Carroll, and a third person who I can't recognize behind her mask. So I am going to talk a little bit about the MOU at the very end, but I think it's helpful to have a little bit of background that we wind up discussing internally in connection with coordination issues that come up. And in every discussion with a utility or a railroad that I've had in my long tenure with Metro, and that is, or the starting point is that Metro, in most places in the city, does not own the fee interest in its rights-of-way. We're presumed to own only an easement. The same, by the way, is true of railroads. There are some exceptions to that rule, most particularly in the downtown area. That was part of the plat that Nashville got from the state of North Carolina in 1784. So Broadway north to roughly where Jefferson Street is now, and from the river to the west about as far as where 8th Avenue is, we are presumed almost beyond challenge to own the fee interest in those streets, but in most other places there's a presumption that we don't. The presumption can be overcome with clear evidence of the deed. One of the projects that I've been working on with another utility recently has to do with part of Church Street, just west of I-40, where it appears that we own the fee interest there as well. So this has to do, it's important to keep that in mind when we talk about who's responsible for what, when we want to request that utilities be moved. Utilities are not there because they have easements typically. They're there under what is called a bare license in the judicial decisions that deal with this issue. There are exceptions to that too, of course, but by and large, utilities are not in the right of way because they have easements themselves. And that's important because if an easement holder generally cannot be made to move whatever it's got there without some sort of compensation or a condemnation action. The Tennessee Supreme Court has issued a bunch of decisions, and there have been some federal court decisions over the last century or so that have reaffirmed this. There are a couple of exceptions that are worth keeping in mind. Redevelopment districts, and there are several in the downtown area. As you know, the council has a role to play in establishing redevelopment districts. There is a statute that requires that utilities be compensated for moving their stuff in the rights-of-way when in a redevelopment district, when the local government requires them to do so. I wish that we'd been able to figure out how to get this on the overhead, although I'm not sure the picture would translate well there. There's a picture of the courthouse in the early 1970s that shows the configuration of the roadway there and some old buildings on the far east side of the court square that were unfortunately torn down at that time in the name of urban renewal. But I included that picture there because one of the more recent cases that has explored this issue dealt with AT&T, or its predecessor in this particular case, Bell South, which had some of its lines in that right-of-way there that's in front of the courthouse, what is now Union Street. And we had a dispute with them in connection with the renovation of the courthouse and the construction of what is now the Courthouse Square Garage about who was responsible for moving those lines. And In that particular case, there was a little corner of a redevelopment district that nicked that site, and so ultimately Metro had to pay that cost. But in that same decision, we got a ruling from the court that said in other parts of town where we've been struggling to get compliance from Bell South on this requirement that they move at their cost, that they couldn't do that anymore. And I'm happy to say that we've had a much better working relationship with Bell South since then, and AT&T since that merger took place again, in sort of a complicated part of Church Street under the viaduct, where we have a greenway that goes through there that's being reconstructed as part of a private development. And part of that project is going to involve rebuilding the greenway. And in order to make the ADA slopes work and improve everything for the benefit of the users, we're going to have to get them to move a duct bank that's very close to the surface. And once we figured out, yes, it's in the public right of way, they have been working with us, and they're going to move it at pretty significant cost to them. So I've got a list of utilities there on that same page that's not as extensive as the one that's on a page or two later that I know Hal is going to talk about. But I included them to note that by and large, the utilities that we work with abide by this rule, including Metro Water Services. When there's a project that requires that the utilities be moved from the right-of-way for some, it doesn't necessarily have to be a right-of-way use, but typically the project would be an expansion of the right-of-way or the moving of a sidewalk or moving of poles or whatever to improve ADA compliance. The utilities understand that they have to do that at their cost. And so on this list here, that's typically been the practice, including with NES. We have a somewhat different relationship with NES because under the charter, it's an agency of the Metropolitan government, and that causes some confusion. It can be confusing for things like tort liability. Is that a separate governmental entity for purposes of the GTLA cap or not? And who is responsible for the bearing of costs, not only in this area but in some others? Of course, we want to treat our sister agencies in such a way that it benefits the public and limits cost to everybody. But at the end of the day, this is one of those areas that we're working towards an MOU with NES on. The practice historically has been that NES does pay for moving its utilities when we need them to. And we, as Faye mentioned, we're working towards an MOU with them that hopefully will cover this and some other things. And we've met with them on Friday, and tentatively, I think we've agreed on language that they will continue that practice. And so the remaining issue on that side has to do with coordination of timing. And I think we see a path forward there as well. Hal is going to talk a little bit about coordination efforts and timing and other things. But I think we're moving in the right direction with NES on that. The other thing that I think the MOU is going to need to address, and we've spoken to them about this as well, has to do with maintenance of streetlights and other poles that provide a service for Metro, and we're paying for that. And we need to get a better handle on the inventory of those poles and whether it makes sense for the long run for them to be providing that service and us paying for it, or whether we need to be doing that. And so that's going to be one of the things that we plan to address going forward too. I'm happy to answer questions, but I know Hal's got some things to say, and you may think of things to ask then. I'll defer till then if you don't have anything now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hal Balthrop. I'm an assistant director at Metro Water. I've been with Metro Water since 1984, and except for a few years out in the private sector, I've been there most of my career. I'm currently the assistant director over development services, which is new development for water, wastewater, and stormwater in our service area, Davidson County. We do have some service, sewer service outside of the county that we assist with as well. Years ago, we had what was called the Nashville Area Utility Council. It was a group of the then utilities that met periodically to coordinate activities within the right-of-way. Over time, as people retired and organizations changed, that group discontinued meeting, But when Faye came to town, she was very interested in reinstating a group to look at common issues and challenges within the right-of-way. So with her guidance and assistance, we set up two groups. One is a policy group that's comprised of department heads and leads, principals at major utilities here in Nashville. That group meets quarterly to decide on policy and discuss policy. And a second group meets monthly, and it's more of an operational group. And these are folks that actually have boots on the ground and work intimately, certainly, with the right-of-way and the challenges of coexisting within the right-of-ways. So you'll notice on one of my sheets here, you see the member agencies. We are, blessed that we have a lot of participation. We are adding to this group as more services are added inside the right-of-way. Mr. Vaughn Charles is one of our members on both groups and is very active. NES is engaging with us on that, which we appreciate very much. But you can look at the list of utilities and providers. I incorporated 811, which is the Tennessee One Call. You may be familiar with that organization because they're kind of an umbrella for notification. So I kind of use them to some extent to help me make contact with some of the utilities, and they've been very helpful as well. So the next page, I have the purpose of the group. I'm sure some of this is pretty obvious to you, but again, as I mentioned years ago, we had a group, people have retired, organizations have changed. So one of the primary objectives was to re-identify who the contacts are for the various organizations. So we've been able to do that, and we continue to do that. And then as Tom pointed out, just having a common understanding of coexisting in the right-of-way. What is the accessibility? What are the processes involved with Public Works and TDOT, particularly on applying for permission to be in the right-of-way, and what does that mean? What kind of permits are involved? The groups are planning and scheduling with each other on work. I'm going to cover that a little bit in a minute on the next slide. And obviously to us, I think as public servants, we want to reduce the expense to our ratepayers at Water and NES and other ratepayers for other utilities, but also the general funded departments like NDOT and some of the other metro agencies. So by having the relationships and doing the planning and scheduling, certainly we can do that better. The inconvenience to the public, I'm sure none of you have gotten any calls about new pavement being cut or sidewalks being disturbed. We're hoping to see a decrease in that through our efforts and coordination to try to schedule needed maintenance and repair concurrent with one another, or at least consecutive with one another, so we're not disturbing new pavement or new sidewalks in the right-of-way. And that's the next point. And then I'll go on to a bigger, issue in appreciating that all of us are providing services for the betterment of our community, and we want to be conscious and supportive of each other. I will say, I spent 18 years with Metro Water over the maintenance and repair of all the pipes in Davidson County, or in our service area. 3,000 miles of water and sewer pipe. When Telecom came to town, they wanted to take advantage of a lot of our trenches that we had installed our infrastructure, and at times put their infrastructure in direct alignment and contact sometimes with our utility. That made it very challenging whenever there was a needed repair or maintenance activity, and certainly when an emergency occurred and we had a water main break, we were putting other services out of service because we were having to get in and do repairs because they had installed in such close proximity to our infrastructure. So again, an objective of this group is to better appreciate everyone's obligation and responsibility of service to our community, and in doing so, or part of that includes being supportive of one another as we coexist in the right-of-way. And then another big key thing that Faye and her team at NDOT has been able to incorporate, and we're making grounds with TDOT as well, is that two-way communication where as those agencies develop new policies and practices, they're asking for our input because they also understand the value of the services that we provide and the need for us to exist in the right of way. And by doing so, we get to weigh in on how they develop their policies and practices. So it's good for everyone. The next slide, you'll notice it's a little busy, and I apologize for that, but it's Nash Digs. It is a web-based platform that allows all member or utilities that join this particular platform, and it's free, by the way, to put representations on a spatial map so we can see by street, by council district, by whatever, however you want to slice and dice it, who has work planned or scheduled in a geographic area. We all are familiar with spreadsheets, and we see listings of projects on spreadsheets, but it's very challenging to match those up with other agencies. So seeing those projects on a map is certainly very helpful in planning and scheduling and coordinating. We just got, Harpeth Valley just joined the Nash Digs. Piedmont has joined. Piedmont has already recognized and shared with us at one of our NAUC meetings how they have saved time on having to do pavement restoration at locations because they were able to coordinate in conjunction with Public Works resurfacing program. And I will say, I want to put a shout out to my own department. Metro Water has coordinated with Public Works for many years in looking at their paving resurfacing program, and even TDOT as well, to try to get in right before they're ready to resurface to do whatever maintenance and repair we need to do. And it's saved a lot of money for our ratepayers. The most recent big, I guess, coordination on a specific project that we've done is the 2nd Avenue blast area. And it's on Nash Digs. You can't see it here particularly, but Nash Digs and then the NAUC particularly has allowed us to best coordinate getting in there and addressing our utility damages in a consecutive manner to hopefully facilitate reopening the 2nd Avenue from Commerce to Church as soon as possible. And as you maybe visited or can imagine, that was certainly a major undertaking. But again, this organization helped in that response to help coordinate and save time. So that's all I have as well.
Questions? Members? Questions? Council Member Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Balthrop and Mr. Cross and Ms. DeMassimo. I think I'll kind of work backwards just because that's what's most recently in our brain. So, Mr. Balthrop, regarding Nash Digs, is participation optional? It sounded like it was.
Yes, ma'am, it is. But what we're doing at the NAUC meetings is demonstrating the value in it. Again, that it's free. It takes minimum time by the utility members to upload their information. It's quite easy to do. Metro ITS has a full-time dedicated staff person for the maintenance of this product. And we're working with NDOT on encouraging more participation through them because they tend to have a little more influence than perhaps the water department with other utilities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I would assume you mentioned Harpeth Valley Utilities, Piedmont, NES, some of our more major things that come to mind. Tell me what happens when somebody is subcontracted to a utility, 5G install, all of that. How does that work, and are they participating?
Well, not directly. Certainly their client, I guess, is the permittee. So like for instance, when Google came to town, Bechtel was a major contractor for them, but then they subbed out work. So the relationship with the city was through Bechtel because Bechtel held the permits. So any damages or anything that was done that under Bechtel's purview enabled the city then to go back to Bechtel for any corrective action that was necessary. But Bechtel itself, and I hope I'm answering your question, is not an entity that necessarily would participate in Nash Digs. just as you can, they could go online and see the content on NashDigs, and you're all accessible to that product. And if you're ever interested in having a brief demonstration of it, we're happy to set it up. You'll be able to see again in your districts what's being planned, what's funded, and being ready for construction in your respective districts.
Ms. DeMassimo.
No? There we go.
Yes.
I think I would add to that, I have a question for you that I think may be responsive to that as well. Normally, when a subcontractor is working under another prime contractor, there's a contractual relationship there in which the prime has passed forward to the sub the obligation to perform in the same way and do the notifications and all those kinds of things that they're subscribing to. So I would assume that we could hope and we could assume in some measure that largely those contractual relationships between them would in fact impose those same kinds of obligations on them. I'm sure, Councilmember, it wouldn't be perfect every time because we're not in the middle of the prime sub relationship, but how would you think that's correct?
Well, I would, I may rely on our colleague here, Mr. Cross, but our influence is with whom we have relationship with, whether in contract or any other mechanism. But so in the example I cited,
would it not be with whom is the applicant to be, permitting the work? So, I mean, from a relationship perspective, but you mean, whoever has filed for
the permit. Yes, the permit serves as the contract with the city for responsibility. Is that correct, Mr. Cross? I don't want to.
That is correct, but it's also true that the utilities are not required to participate in this program, and there may be competitive reasons why they don't all want to expose exactly where they're going to be working a year in advance.
Yeah,
and so this could be a little bit of a tricky balance.
I'm sorry. That was especially true with the telecom group.
Oh, yeah, all of us that are in our second term on council definitely remember that, where, AT&T was chasing Google all over town and so forth. So I think my question is kind of in that similar space where I understand, from a competitive standpoint, but, whether it's through our permitting platform, and I'd be interested to understand our proprietary permitting platform as to, street closures or street use, like how does that intersect with NashDigs? Because what I have difficulty with as a council member is kind of understanding ahead of time who's going to be out in this particular corridor, potentially cutting through tree roots, kind of messing stuff up, and then people are calling me and, kind of where do I go to get that figured out and to have, folks be responsive. And I would say from an expectation standpoint, whether it's participation in this website or just, our notification principles and so forth, to Bechtel's credit, when Google was out that first pass, they were putting out all the door hangers. Constituents were not calling me about work subbed to Bechtel for that. But, respectfully, when AT&T came behind and all their subs, landscaping, irrigation cut, I feel like I lost days and weeks of my life trying to figure out how to help people get, and so, I'm grateful for this coordinative work because I think, those of us who've been on council for a while, this was just, it just seemed like the Wild West for a long time, and it did not seem like things were being coordinated, and we were kind of standing in the breach trying to help connect people. So can you then speak to if participants don't want to be required to document where they're working, are you suggesting that in your monthly coordinative meetings, you're going to have sufficient notice to, I know there's a variation of scale. So NES is coming through to put in big poles. That has implications on sidewalk infrastructure versus, somebody's micro trenching and trying to put digital stuff in and the issues of scale. But do you feel that it gets appropriately picked up in monthly meeting processes, or is it happening through the mapping? It just seems like there's a lot of layers, and, when things aren't required, sometimes I worry that they slip through the cracks. But can you just speak to how the monthly meeting process is
Yes.
picking that up or not, or the permitting application mapping is, or
Yes, ma'am.
how
So
they're intersect?
a standing agenda item on the monthly meetings is, and I try to prompt the attendees ahead of time with either specific agenda items or, hey, be prepared to discuss whatever. And the whatever in this context is if you're going to do a major expansion or replacement or rehabilitation, please bring it up to the group. It is true that currently Nash Diggs is an optional membership. I would say, and again, I don't want to speak for NDOT, but being the authorities of the right-of-way do the permitting. And there are a certain number of days before they're allowed in the right-of-way that they have to apply for and be granted a permit. So if you're interested in who has permitted where, the Nash Diggs tool is not going to be the complete product for that information. We do want to, as we continue the relationship with NDOT and TDOT, we are hopeful that we can encourage their involvement and perhaps their determination that participation in Nash Diggs is a requirement. We're trying to work toward that. And again, I don't want to misspeak here, but that has been discussed, and we're going to continue to discuss that because, again, it's free. It's very easy to put in your information. And so I think, again, having the spatial representation of activity is generally more digestible by everyone, right? So.
Yeah, and I concur. And to that point, Mr. Chair, just one more clarifying question on that same point to Ms. DeMassimo. So, Ms. DeMassimo, I was talking about kind of the intersection of the various platforms and where things are listed and how they're mapped. And so, as I understood it, in years prior, we had a proprietary kind of road segment-based mapping function where you could see, whether street closures or permitting and then that sort of fell away for a while. Now I think council members were getting back in our inboxes, like we're seeing the permits come into our, not our focused account, but our other account, But to Mr. Balthrop's point, like if something comes up and somebody's like, well, what's happening here? Then I'll go to my inbox and kind of try to go through the emails. But I would love for that to be on a map somewhere that I could point my constituents to. And so can you speak to that other mapping function? Not saying they have to overlap each other, but I feel like that's still missing as kind of a visual tangible.
Sure. We're working with IT right now on bringing back a tool that does exactly that. And we're doing that in conjunction with looking at our overall policies around road, lane, and sidewalk closures, the permitting processes that accompany those, and fee structure, all of that. So it's a comprehensive review of that whole activity, as well as the providing of accurate and timely information to council members and the public about those things that impact you when you're traveling through Metro Nashville. So it's in progress.
Great. Thank you so much.
Council Lady Benedict. There we go.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Going back, goodness, almost 2 years ago is when I started that special committee on sidewalks. And Faye, you had just come on board, and holy cow, the progress you've made. So this is fantastic. Additionally, holy cow, what we can do when we have some more money. So this has been a very, very good findings. I will say Jeff Hammond has been marvelous at this as well and just done a great job heading this up and communicating about it. I'm excited to see even more results as we go. When I think about, where we were 2 years ago, we could do about 5.5 miles per year, if that, in new construction. Everybody in the city wants more sidewalks. We've got 532 square miles. And I think what people need to understand is what those limitations are and what we're working towards. This clearly is addressing some of those limitations that we have. And as we look at how fast we've grown, and some of the findings of that committee was, how can we keep up with the growth that we've had? But when you're a city who has, been car-centric and not focused on walkability at all, it's no wonder you can't walk in our city safely, right? But as we know, no child and no senior, and quite frankly, nobody should be, put in harm's way because our streets are unsafe or unwalkable. With that end, I appreciate the explanation. I think my questions would be, how do we uncomplicate this? How do we unpack this and make it, this is a lot of information. It's great information, but how do we help the community understand that, hey, if we need half your front yard to put some walkability in, which is what you want, how do we help you let us do that, right? How do we uncomplicate it? Because, for instance, I've got a sidewalk in my district that's been approved prior to when I started on council, and lately I'm getting all the questions all the time because the right-of-way continues to be asked for. I think, how do we help unpack all of this and put it in a language that helps the city and our constituents understand how we're getting this done and what causes the delay and what improvements should we expect going forward? Obviously, that's a lot, I know. So, thank you.
I think actually, though, Councilmember Benedict, there's actually a pretty targeted, focused answer to that, and that is, it really is all about communication. And it's about communication of value. It's about communication that you have confidence in. One of the things that I think we're doing, all of us together, council and the administration and staff, is working to rebuild trust and confidence in our ability to deliver and to deliver quality, on schedule, on time, on budget, just as we've told you it would be. So a lot of the communication efforts that we have underway now, really pushing this information out. You mentioned Jeff Hammond's work, the fact that we have someone who's completely dedicated to the delivery of the really important program with sidewalks and leading the update of the walk-bike plan update. Is a really critical part of this. So I really do think it is a matter of us always giving you really good communication to push out to your constituents. It's a matter of us always delivering in the way that we say we will, and when we can't, stepping right up to explain to you the reasons why. If you tell people what's happened, they typically will, they'll appreciate that. Everybody knows that things happen, right? So when we do have a project that runs into some sort of an issue or delay, whether that's utility coordination or something else, utility coordination itself, I don't really honestly know how to uncomplicate that, because to be honest with you, it's just, and I think NES, our partners and friends at NES and the other utilities would agree with us, it's a bear. Managing the complexity of our rights of way there's just a lot there to noodle through. But we have a great team doing it, and I really do think the simple answer back to your question, though, is having really strong, effective, believable, credible communications about what we're doing and how we're doing it in a way that people can trust and have confidence in the delivery.
Thank you for that. That's all I've got. Thanks, Chair.
Anyone else? Council Lady Henderson.
My next question is about streetlights, and you all alluded to that earlier. And I know we've had kind of some chronic areas of outage, and as I understand it, some of that dispute has been around, where the connective line is, and is it under the sidewalk, and who's responsible for fixing it, and so forth. But I did want to ask, with over time, that MOU kind of being outstanding or, not yet finalized, it seemed like we were a little bit betwixt and between. And so I'm hoping to understand, Faye, particular to NDOT and kind of who is charged with, from a safety perspective, right? Whether it's the driving public, the walking, the whatever, that streetlight component is so key. And, I appreciate NES very much. Mr. Carroll, if I'm driving home a certain evening and I'm just counting, like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I can send it to him, and, I know it will be addressed. I try to tell my constituents to do the same, but I help me understand just sort of contractually where we are. As I understand it, there's not really an inventory or a system for NES to know these lights are out or not or whatever, and we're sort of paying NES kind of our electric bill, so to speak, is based on a certain assumption of this many lights are on. But, you know, when we have these kind of extensive outages and so forth, like what's kind of the contractual aspect of those outages and how we keep up with that? And can somebody speak to that, please?
Tom, do you want to start a little bit with how that's going to be covered in the MOU, and then I'll follow up with how we're actually doing this on a day-to-day basis now?
I might defer to NES on exactly how they are picking up the outages now. I know that they receive some of the information, as you just described, through customer complaints and other people calling them in. I think they also, I don't know they have a regular process of sending people around on all of the streets that have street lights to see which ones are out. But I do know that when they have crews out that recognize that they've got outages, they report those and they fix them. So yes, it would be nice to have a clear procedure in the MOU, and that's one of the things that we have talked about. Again, in the very long run, maybe that's something that NES should be doing, and maybe it's something that Metro should be doing. But I'm going to have to ask Faye to explain if there's more to this than that NDOT is going to be picking up. But it is important to note that we have shared responsibility for the safety of the streets as it relates to the lighting. So we both have good reasons, and the first being, you know, to be good stewards of the funds that are entrusted to us by the public, but also we have tort liability to think about, and we could both be partially responsible if a lighting failure causes some accident or injury.
Vaughn, do you want to talk a little bit about how we're working together right now? And then, like I said, I'll follow up with our process.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I'm just wanting to understand, is there any, whether contractual or agreement, you know, NES and Metro, you know, once reported, we don't want to light to be out longer than, you know, X number of days or something to that effect. I know there are some things, as I understand them, because when I in my district have found sort of dark spots, not necessarily because, well, not in fact because a light is out, but rather just sequentially how they are spaced on the poles. It's just a dark place. And so in trying to address those, I came to understand that we had some sort of contractual thing wherein NES was providing lights a certain number of feet apart on roadways. Somebody from NES came out and said, oh yeah, this is above the distance. We can put you in another pole and, you know, add a light to it. As I understood, there was no additional cost for that because that was just in the broader scope of what we're kind of, you know, paying for every month. But yeah, I would be glad to hear from NES to just understand some of those, you know, temporal or spatial obligations that we have as far as how we work on this together.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start by trying to explain the process of installation and removal of lights in general. And so NES actually, we perform as the contractor for Metro Public Works. I'm not sure, maybe now NDOT. And we technically receive letters requesting where we install lights and where we remove lights. That's for planned installations and planned removals. So NES does not arbitrarily go out and install or remove lights. It's usually at the direction of the governmental agency. In terms of maintenance, the only way right now that we are aware that lights are out, it's when it's reported to NES. We do not have a system in place that would allow us to instantaneously know whenever a street light's out. And so we depend heavily on the general public, and we do at times try to ride what we call ride out some of the main thoroughfares to identify lights that are out, you know, by means of our crews. And we try to address those as we identify them. To give a little back history, so recently we have engaged in a contract where we're going to centralize all of our street lighting maintenance. In the past, what we've attempted to do was have multiple operation centers be responsible for street light maintenance. And what would happen is that the street light maintenance would be competing against new pole installations, relocations, poles that are hit with cars, and obviously didn't always maybe receive that very top priority in terms of some of this other capital work that needed to take place. We've identified that, and so one of the things that we're trying to do to address that issue is to go ahead and centralize all of our street lighting crews, and they're prioritized with only streetlight maintenance. So they're not going to be competing against other activities, NES activities. And this is something that's gone into effect within the last month.
That's good to know. I appreciate that. How many streetlights are there in Davidson County?
So approximately for Davidson County, we are looking, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50,000, I believe, just for Davidson County.
And how much is the Metro government paying for those monthly or yearly, Mr. Cross or Mr. Mathman?
Yeah, I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. I just don't.
know them either, do you, Faye?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay, well, if somebody could just get back to me and email me.
Absolutely.
House Lady Benedict?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up to that. Is there a way to integrate this with 311 so that when there is an outage that we could get that to the hub and then over to NES in some form or fashion?
Yes.
I think it is on.
It is.
Is it?
I think it's on
Okay,
there.
all right, thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Henderson?
Sorry, Chair. That's me being the former chair. I've just got all these backlog questions from years and years of thinking about all this. Thank you so much for the illustration of the Herman Street sidewalk improvements, and Mr. Hammond for your work on that. Mr. Massimo, you mentioned that there are kind of like a top 5 projects that you're working on with maybe some major pole obstructions. I think we as colleagues, I mean, we've all got a Herman Street in our district, if not more. And so I guess around utility coordination, there's fixing kind of what we have, and then there's kind of proactively looking forward. Like if I look at a recent project where I feel like, wow, that was a big miss. NES coming down Hillsborough Pike, consolidating poles. We have a, Tier 5 Nashville Next Center that we know we want to have development in. We want it to be a walkable community. We have elevated sidewalk standards. And man, we just put those big consolidated poles right back on skinny, 5-foot, right on the road sidewalks on a state route, and that just seemed like such a missed opportunity where NES was coming through to do major infrastructure that we could have coordinated sidewalk infrastructure, Council Lady Benedict's point. So I guess, how are we kind of quantifying how many projects like this there are to fix, and how are we prioritizing them? And then secondarily, what are we doing proactively going forward for any intended pole consolidation or anything of that magnitude where we should redo our lower standard sidewalk infrastructure at the same time, please?
So answer to the first question is, when we first started this, council member, as has been described earlier in the meeting, what we were trying to do is this very comprehensive look at utility coordination and the policy and the field folks. You've already heard all this. The MOU that really is going to deal with some of the more long-standing issues around our business relationship with NES. But then in addition to that, we knew we wanted to do some demonstrations. And so this was just a staff exercise to pick a few of those projects or a few of those areas where we know that utility encroachment, especially as it relates to ADA compliance issues, we just wanted to pick a few of those and let's roll up our sleeves with NES and others as is necessary and say, how do we solve for this? Because for too long, what had happened was it was just like, there's no real good way to fix that. So we're just gonna, and no, let's pick a few. Let's pick some of the worst, and let's figure out let's solve for some, and then we get into we sort of build that muscle of solving, and we start to engage our business that way. We are, I appreciate the kind of excitement and hope that these kinds of stories creates.
And I also ask for a little bit of grace here in terms of how we're building up to that. So I think that what we can do in terms of answering your question about some more of the details and specifics is Jeff Hammond can work on providing some more information to you and the other council members about sort of the remainder of those that we had sort of picked to try to brainstorm through with NES and other utilities, and then how we see then that sets the path for how we are more systematically or more routinely doing those kinds of things and trying to prevent and solve for some of the things that you just described through the work that Hal is doing with the overall utility coordination processes.
I appreciate that so much. And I know I appreciate NES being here, but I also, a lot of the legacy poles that we have in the right-of-way that are problematic are old Bell South, now AT&T poles. And so I wonder, Mr. Cross, can you kind of speak to, and I don't know if this is kind of a false narrative, but as I had understood it, or perhaps misunderstood it, to basically kind of keep, skin in the game, so to speak, and have a certain number of kind of poles to have kind of a place in the conversation or kind of, some control within the right-of-way that, as NES has consolidated some poles, I still see some redundancies where I'm like, oh, what's that old pole? Is that an old Bell South pole? And that seems to really be lagging sometimes the work that NES is doing. And so can you speak to kind of very specifically that Bell South, AT&T, those kind of legacy poles, and what, if anything, has just legal implications, or kind of going back to your initial presentation? Can you speak to that?
I wish I could give you a better answer than this, but I agree with you that there are a lot of legacy poles out there. The telecommunications companies have some rights that very few other utilities have under state statutes. They also are not accountable in the same way that NES and Metro's own utilities are to the public. And so they don't have the same motivations to do things that clear up problems on the sidewalks that other utilities might have, particularly NES. I mean, NES is going to get a phone call from you if you're not happy about something. That just doesn't do anything with AT&T. They have a state statute written in, when telephones were new in this country, that allows them to put their stuff just about anywhere. And so they're just not motivated the same way that other utilities are as far as the location of the poles and the effects they may have on ADA compliance and the use of the right-of-way generally.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Chair, if I may, just to segue back to Mr. Massimo. Mr. Massimo, in that regard then, can you speak to, like, when I'm driving to the courthouse and I'm coming up over Martin Luther King, Charlotte Pike, coming down, you get to kind of a convergence there at the public square, and there are 3 different shades of ugly, 5G small cells. This one's in the sidewalk, this one's in the grass, this one is gray, this one is black, this one is, little messy looking. And so I know that there's kind of state preemption as to what we can ask, but is that a space within which we're having some kind of intention in this utility coordination to know, okay, you want to have this many small cells, and in downtown, this is our preferred light pole, and in the Gulch, this is our preferred light pole. And then, as we look forward to our business improvement districts and Mr. Syracuse and Donaldson Hermitage and whatever, mast arms and things they're going to use out there, proactively, this is what we want you to do. Like, can you speak to that, just that 5G small cell piece? Because I think it's somewhat related to the same things that kind of AT&T is allowed to do.
Sure.
So.
I may have to defer to some of my colleagues here. I will tell you my involvement on the small cell conversation up until this point has been somewhat limited. It's been more on specific things rather than a more programmatic kind of look at those, but glad to incorporate that into our overall utility coordination. But I would defer to my colleagues over here for any more programmatic or broader brush look at that, because like I said, my involvement up until this point on that particular matter has been more limited to a specific circumstance.
Well, I guess my question would be, Councilman O'Connell and I think, had some policy last term. We were kind of anticipating the 5G Wild West. I think we got kind of partially preempted, but it was, in some ways, it was like a co-location type thing, right? It was saying, okay, well, let's master plan downtown, this many poles, you know, that area that's within our purview, and then saying, okay, well, and I know utilities, they don't want to share and whatever, but I guess can you then just speak to, if anything, you're doing specifically with 5G small cell location and how that fits in the utility coordination
Yes, ma'am.
that you're highlighting?
Well, we haven't spoken specifically on that topic. As Faye's pointing out, we're a bit young reestablishing this group, but part of the objective, again, is building the relationships and the mutual understanding of our respective services to the community, and also, you know, hopefully appealing to everyone's sense of obligation to enable each other to be successful within the right-of-way. So although we're not specifically dealing with that, we hope that, again, with a little time and relationship building, we'll be able to discuss that and have a better appreciation of those impacts like you're describing. But as of right now, we don't have anything specifically on the 5G.
6 o'clock, right on schedule. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our presenters, and appreciate your time. We've all learned a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the kind words from our folks.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.